What's up, guys? If you could tell by the thumbnail, we're doing the Arizona Cardinals draft recap, and we're starting with their first pick at the 16th pick, Walter Nolan.
Yeah,
Jameis, what do you think about the pick?
yeah, I liked it. I was definitely surprised. Not that they went defense, but based on who was available, I just didn't think they were going to go interior defensive line. But I really like Walter Nolan. I think the Cardinals defense with this pick, and then the next one being Will Johnson in the second round, which is also a steal. I think their defense is going to look pretty sick next year and going forward.
Yeah, I think they're really starting to build the defense. I know we're just starting with Walter Nolan's grades for right now on
Yeah,
PFF. Um, I'll scroll down so everyone can see that. These are his grades over the different games this last year at Ole Miss. Some stand out more than others. I noticed from looking at these that his grades were better against the better teams, which was very interesting to me. Um, not necessarily
yeah,
not necessarily the better teams, but the bigger games that they had. I don't know. It's just Jameis's first time glancing at this as well, but
yeah. Yeah, and we're gonna be learning about the lower picks kind of along with y'all on some of them. Obviously, we feel like we have good ball knowledge, but we don't really. It's kind of hard to know, all these players if it's not your job. So, um,
exactly.
we're kind of learning along, with y'all on some of these guys. But those first two picks, especially this one, Walter Nolan, I really like. I really like what they're doing here. And like I said, I think that uh, Jonathan Gannon is going to have these guys flying around because I liked what I saw overall last year from the Cards. I feel like they definitely made a lot of improvement from, the year before that. There's a reason they were drafting third overall 2 years ago. So I think this was good right here.
Yeah, and you could tell. Obviously, he went to A&M his first 2 years, and then he transferred to Ole Miss, and you could just see Ole Miss was just a better situation for him. I know he probably got better, but he also um, saw a better snap count as well, which you can either get worse with a higher snap count or better, and he got better, so that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, 100%. And he's supposed to be the D tackle with, kind of the most upside maybe of any player in the draft. Maybe not number one, but he's got to be up there for a dude that has what a lot of people would consider the most upside, maybe even more than Mason Graham at D tackle, who was picked, fifth overall. So, I've said it a couple times, but I think it's solid. I think it's a good pick, and it's weird now that there's players getting drafted that are younger than us. That's just weird to see.
Yeah, yeah, it is weird.
Wow.
Seamus pairing him up with someone who basically didn't play last year and was a breakout on my breakout defense video, Darius Robinson. Walter Nolan, Darius Robinson, Baron Browning. They got a couple guys
Yeah, and they picked up Josh
later in
Sweat.
the
Maybe
draft,
maybe
and
some good in the offseason.
yeah, exactly. I mean, their defense is starting to come together.
Yeah. And then on the next pick, I mentioned it a couple times, but Will Johnson, the fact that he fell to 47 is kind of crazy to me. I feel like it's a classic example of a dude who was hurt and maybe didn't run the fastest 40 ever and just kind of started to slip. But if you look at Michigan when they won it all, 2 years ago, he looked like the best player on their defense thing. We know how many first rounders and great players were on that defense. So if you're getting Will Johnson at 47, I know we were talking about him as maybe not the best corner in the draft, but if you get him at that value, I think it's an absolute steal.
Yeah, it seemed like there towards the end of the first round, everyone's saying, "All right, this is Will Johnson.
Yeah,
This is Will Johnson," and it just kept he just kept slipping. So obviously, I think you're so lucky to be able to get him and Walter Nolan. So far, I would give the Cardinals an A up to this point.
yeah, yeah,
He did miss a lot of time just last season, and Honestly, looking at the grades here, they're not great. Me personally, I wasn't super high on Will Johnson, but I still think he can be a great corner in the league. But I've also heard that he hasn't been fully healthy in a while. So that's kind of a concern as well. But
Yeah, yeah, I like it. I think he's what a lot of people were saying. Like the analysis was that he's kind of a zone guy, and I'm sure Gannon's going to get him in there, and I'm sure they're going to, fit him in right. But
yeah, and you can see the 88 overall coverage grade here, Seamus. At his what was that? Yeah, 2022. So he's got it. You see a little decline. I think that's all um, health related.
yeah, and with their third pick in the third round, the Cards picked Jordan Birch, and he's an edge out of Oregon. And this is one of those guys that I didn't really know a ton about, so I'm kind of reading up on him right now. But he had 10 sacks last year. Looks like PFF likes him. And this is a trend that I really like from the Cardinals. Their first 5 picks were all defensive players. And I feel like this is something you kind of see whenever a coach kind of gets settled in a couple years in. They, had to get a left tackle to protect Kyler. They got what a lot of people thought was a generational receiver in Marv, but he's a defensive coach. And, that's Jonathan Gannon. And he's going into his third year. And I feel like he's really trying to kind of shore up his defense and establish his identity with the squad. And that's through the defensive side of the ball, it seems like.
Yeah, dude, they loaded up on defense this draft, and I get it because their offense wasn't bad. They competed with everybody offensively. I think they need to probably do a better job finishing in the red zone. Um, Obviously, everyone knows that who had Trey McBride too, right? Freaking what, two touchdowns
Yeah.
on the whole season, three. Like
Yeah.
that's
He
one
did
of your
not
best
find any.
guy. Marvin's production, yeah. Yeah, I think Cody Simon, linebacker, 6'2", 235. Seamus, anybody that can play for Ohio State or Jim Knowles' defense knows ball, like has high IQ and can just play ball, bro, because he is just Knowles will not let you play if you can't have a big brain on the field and compete and make plays. I know in our mock drafts, we really thought the Cardinals would get Jihad Campbell because their linebacker situation interior wise isn't great. This guy could potentially become an interior linebacker for them. I don't know, Seamus. I like it. Oh, we have the grades here too, but what do you think?
Yeah, it looks like he can kind of do it all based on what I'm reading here because it says he has a 90 run defense grade and then 80 pass rush and 72 pass coverage. So he's kind of a Swiss Army knife, it looks like. And I definitely like the pick. Linebacker, especially off the ball, is kind of a position that you can find kind of gems or dogs down the board a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking up a couple of years from now and this dude's starting for him and pretty good.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
and their next pick in the 5th round was also an Ohio State guy, Denzel Burke, the cornerback. Once again, I like the pick. This was a draft for the Cards that, especially through the first 5 rounds, I feel like they just did pretty solid and shored up their defense. Getting a corner out of Ohio State, like I said, these dudes have played some big games, and so it makes you kind of trust that they could translate. Obviously, it's getting a dude down the board, so there's a lot less of a chance that he's going to be, a great player or anything like that. But who knows? But I really think, like I said a couple times, just shoring up the defense. You get 2 corners right here, just making their cornerback room was already good with young talent, and now I just feel like they're super deep.
Yeah, and you're getting up to this point. The Cardinals are getting guys that are playing on big teams that played in big games. Um, I know Garrett Williams is ranked third in PFF on how he played at corner this year. So getting anybody to pair with him and develop with him for the Cardinals, I believe, is a great move. I think building the defense in general for the Cardinals, I know we've said it already in the video, but dude, they're heading in the right direction, and especially in that division with the Niners slowly going to shit, and the Seahawks are kind of in they're a whole new team. It feels like Rams they're coming on, they're on the downside, right? Stafford's at the end of his career, you know.
Yeah, I always trust that, Sean McVay will figure it out. So I would definitely have them as kind of the favorites this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cards came out and won the division or definitely made the playoffs at least. It kind of seems like a team that it's all kind of up to Kyler, but if he's consistent and their offense is solid, I think they make the playoffs this year. They're one of those teams that didn't make it that jumps in.
100%.
Yeah, Dylan, and then with their sixth rounder, the Cards went Hayden Cooper, a guard out of Texas. And anytime that you pick an O lineman, at this point down the board, it's kind of just best available at whatever position you kind of need, I feel like. And y'all are reading what we are right now. He seems like, looks like a solid player. And
No
at this
sacks,
point,
Seamus.
yeah, 0 sacks allowed on 617, pass blocking snaps is pretty good. And I just think at this point you're drafting guys and trying to develop them for the future. So maybe this is a guy we see down the line.
Yeah, anytime you can do over 600 snaps for Texas and not give up a sack, you're getting drafted, right? I think it's interesting how this dude's going in the sixth rounder. This is just proof that guards you can get them later on in the draft. I know everyone in our friend group was kind of surprised Tyler Booker went so early. Obviously, he's an elite guard, but this guy ain't far off. I mean, if you're giving up no sacks, then right.
Yeah, and I always like guys that play in the SEC and in these big games, like I had mentioned with Ohio State. But this dude was definitely going against some monsters and seemed like he held up really good. So I don't think there's much else to say about him. And then they got Kyton Crawford, hopefully that's how you say his name, a safety out of Nevada. And, he had an 88.5 coverage grade last year. And one thing that I thought was underrated when I was, looking at him was the special team snaps.
Yeah.
Over 1,000. That dude is going to be an instant impact, and that's how these guys down the board are going to stay on the team, is being able to contribute on special teams and whatnot.
Yeah, anytime you can get a guy that can play teams, you want him, right? And even if he doesn't play at safety, off the rip for the Cards, he gets to learn behind Buda Baker.
Yeah, 100%. Overall,
Seamus,
though, I thought the Cards did pretty well. There's a reason that PFF thought they got an A+. I'm not really. It's hard to grade it because you don't know. It's kind of just a guess, but I would just overall say that I really like what the Cards did right here. And if I did have to give it a grade, I would say like an A+. I thought they did really good.
yeah, I think everyone's favorite pick is probably Walter Nolan, Seamus, but I don't know. I like all of the picks. I just feel like they're deep at corner, man. I know you need a lot of depth at corner, but I really like their draft. And yeah.
Yeah, I think those first two guys are going to be an instant impact off the rip next year, and probably, I mean, Walter for sure, but I bet Will Johnson will be starting too. So I always enjoy whenever those top guys are really good off the rip, and hopefully they are. And maybe some of those other guys will surprise us and come out and be stars. But yeah, I really like what the Cards did.
Yep. And if you guys like the video, subscribe, comment if you think we're an idiots. Whatever you think, whatever you want to say, man, we'd appreciate it. Check out our other videos. Yep.
Yep. Thank you. Shout out to the Cards fans.